Okay. Everyone, it was 2017, and the game dev community around here, a lot of really cool individuals doing cool stuff, but there wasn't a ton of meetups or groups to kind of bring them together, okay? I met Larry Kuperman, and usually it takes quite a bit of time to kind of build up an org, right? To get a big crowd coming to meetups. But Larry came out of nowhere, and he brought Full House, right? He was such an excellent marketer. He was such a big part, an active part of our community. And he was able to absolutely fill the room and bring people together, which is a super important skill these days. And I know, because I felt it when he left to go help out the Las Vegas IGDA. And it took a while. It took a while to build things back up. The loss was felt immediately. This is a guy who has been everywhere. He knows everybody, and he has been contributing to communities near and far for his entire life. And so we should be very honored and very grateful to have him as part of our community and to have him back. Larry, thank you so much for joining us today.
So that's a little bit overwhelming. Let me put it this way. 7 years ago when we opened the IGDA of Ann Arbor, I was the first speaker. And 7 years later, I haven't made as much progress as I would have hoped. I'm back here being the speaker again. We say in the business that you're only as good as your last game. So this is my last game.
We gotta turn this computer on, you
A 3DO game that can best be described as FMV, full motion video meets first person shooter. And it was a game that when we remastered it caused PC Gamer to ask the question, why? Which is okay. I've said a couple of times that if we all agree that that video games are art, I don't want to be the gatekeeper of what's good art. So as I start to say, you're only as good as your next game.
You have to try reshoring.
Do that in...
We're infected just like all the others. I'm not. Put your weapon down. No way. I'm not going anywhere. Do you have any idea what's going on over there?
I have a perfect idea.
You've done it, haven't you?
There's so much I have to show you.
Back down.
You don't want this fight.
You don't care about this one.
So it's over. Finish the job.
I assume everybody recognizes the video game The Thing from the movie. Coming soon.
Nice.
TM. All right. Let me switch over to, yes, happy face, go away. Let me switch over to PowerPoint. And let's get this show going. And we should be golden. So I'm Larry Kuperman, better known as Larry Nightdive. That's going to be part of the presentation. Run Nightdive Studios, head of business development for Nightdive. Like Corbin's company, we sometimes take on work for hire projects, do work for other studios, mostly remastering games. Got some pretty well-known clients. You may have heard of some of the games that we've redone.
We gotta change the screen.
I guess once we get past what you need.
Just a moment.
Show the full screen.
Full screen?
Yeah.
You're not. You're showing up differently on that.
Oh,
So you're showing now. There you go.
Oh, there you go. I think we're okay. Oh, no. Oh,
Are you sharing the application or the screen?
are you sharing the screen of the application?
I believe I'm sharing the screen, but I could be wrong.
If it's the application, it works out sometimes because Discord's great.
And
Super
I'm
awesome.
there on screen.
Let's get you changed.
Kill it.
Yeah, kill it. We'll go back.
What would it be without tech issues, right?
Like, come on. Can't do an IGDA without it. Yes.
Okay, I think we're gonna be.
And then just switch to the PowerPoint. Oh.
There you go.
Hey.
All right. Yeah.
Achievement unlocked. We have beaten the final boss. Okay, so from startup to beloved, building your studio's reputation. And I'm going to do this on two levels. Talk about two different things. Talk about building the reputation for the company that you work for. We'll talk about building your own reputation. Why would you want to build your own reputation beyond the company? Because sometimes, I don't know, game industry, I mean, I know this is unheard of, but layoffs? You might want to have that in your back pocket. Earlier this year, I was one of the people that participated in an article on Kotaku on ageism in the games industry. Worked with quite a illustrious crowd. Warren Spector, Cliffy B, Scott, who founded Apogee, Scott Miller, right? And I was the fourth person. And it was an article on ageism and how people, as they get older, don't get the same opportunities. When that interview was published, I turned around to two of my coworkers and said, "You realize they can never fire me." I got too old. They put me out to pasture. Okay, so there's that. Let's talk about why this is relevant. So why do you care about your reputation? Well, you care about your reputation under two circumstances. If you, more than two, but at least two. If you work for a company, you might want to get a publishing deal. You might want to get approved for first party, right? Everybody knows what first party is. It means Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, right? You might want to get approved by that. They'll know what your reputation is. And if it's you're an individual, you might want to get another job one day. I don't know, maybe something that pays more, but who knows? I mean, that's kind of crazy talk, right? So if your reputation precedes you, what does it really matter? It matters. There is a real measurable commercial value to reputation. So who am I to speak about reputation? Well, star of stage, screen, and the media. I do get a lot of press. You know, feel free to Google me and expect to be scrolling for a while, which shows that I've either done some very good things or some very bad things, because that's another way of getting a reputation. I didn't say anything positive or negative. There's a feedback cycle here. So this is my Moby Games page. Moby Games, owned by Atari, our sister company. But this is my Moby Games page. It's actually with Killing Time, I'm up to 29. When the thing comes out, 30 games. Interesting story for you about Moby Games and reputations. When my son was a teenager, he came to work with me at Stardock, helped out on the game Lightweight Ninja, which resulted in his getting a special thank you on Lightweight Ninja. My son's a senior front-end programmer from Bloomberg, working out in London. Works for the largest financial services company in the world. But he also has a Moby Games page. And it lists one game. It has his GitHub, it has his LinkedIn, but under his biography, it contains a single sentence. John Kuperman is the son of Larry Kuperman, and I'm sure somewhere out there, there's a tech article that I've contributed to, and under my biography it says, Larry Kuperman is the father of John Kuperman. But the thing is, the more high-end projects you get, the easier it is to get the next one. Nobody's gonna ask me, well, gee, Nightdive Studios, I never heard of you. What games have you remastered? You mean other than Doom and Quake? Go from there. So there is a cycle. So there is real value to this. So what I'm going to promise you that you're going to get from this is it's going to be based on real world experience. It's going to be relevant. That it's going to ask you to commit actions immediately afterwards. And it's relevant in that it's going to speak to things that should be important to you. So let's start off with the Nightdive story. I don't know how many people know this. Steve Kick was working as a character artist for Sony Online in the Evercrest days. He and his wife both got kind of burnt out. They decided to rejuvenate their spirits. They would take a trip from Portland through Central America. They were on their way back up. They were in Belize, I believe, maybe Guatemala, over by the Blue Hole. They had been doing some diving. There's diving that's done after the sun sets. You can see where I'm headed on this one. Steve found out that he couldn't play System Shock 2, but that it was the most requested game on GOG.com. He started doing some research, found out that the rights had, through a story way too long to tell at this point, devolved to an insurance company based in Michigan, of all places. He began to negotiate the rights, and they said to him, "What's the name of your studio?" And he said, and looked around at the sign. Diving after the sun has set, Nightdive Studios. And that's how Nightdive got named. So Steve acquired certain rights for System Shock 2. He acquired the rights to publish the game and keep a certain percentage of the profits. 1 year after he did that, I joined the company. The way I joined the company was, well, after working 11 years at Stardock, I helped build up Impulse. Mike and I both joined GameStop. We refer to that as the dark time. Mike went down to Texas. I started working from home in 2011. I did not want to relocate to Texas.
Smart move.
It absolutely was. So I started working from home. Less than 2 years afterwards, GameStop decided that they did not need my services. I was in charge of business deals for PC Digital. They decided that digital was a passing phase, that brick and mortar was coming back strong, that the 1950s were exactly what the future would look like, and they let all of us go. I cold called. I thought I might want to move out to Portland. I cold called companies beginning just alphabetical. Nightdive Studios was the second or third, showing that there weren't a lot of companies. I went directly from A to N. Contacted Nightdive Studios, spoke with Steve Kick, and it was a marriage made in heaven. I'll tell you exactly what got me the job. We're talking about how long we've been in the industry and things we had learned there. And I said, you know what the difference between knowledge and experience is, knowledge and wisdom is? Anybody know what that difference is? Knowledge is knowing that tomatoes are a fruit. Wisdom is knowing, don't put them in the fruit salad. That was what actually got me the job. So that was about 11 years ago, so must have worked. Steve acquired the publishing rights. I joined the company, and my first task was to acquire the remaining rights of System Shock. How did I do that? I found the lawyer, and I called him every week. I was his Friday call. We chatted. I mean, I was following up from what he had told me. How was that trip that you went on last weekend? You know? So, I mean, it was really funny like that. After a year, we bought the rights to System Shock. So great. Now we have the rights to this iconic IP. Small studio. There were I think 3 or 4 of us at the time. We had a couple of other developers around, but we had no capacity to do that. So we went to Kickstarter to start the project off. We announced it at GDC, and 2016 was a great year for us. I mean, GDC after GDC, we were celebrities. Oh my God, you're doing System Shock. Oh, it's going to be so great. And we raised a not insignificant amount of money. We raised $1.35 million. And so we began a 1-year project to develop the game based on the prototype that we had in Unity. Yeah, so about that. So this was 2018. And you'll notice that there's a word that appears in both of these articles that begins with the letter H. Don't say the word because I have trauma. I really thought that everyone knew that hiatus meant a temporary pause. The story came out on a Friday. Everyone in the media called me. See, when Austin was introducing me, he said I knew everyone, and I did. But the corollary to that is they also knew me. So let me just tell you, everybody likes publicity. But when Jason Schreier calls you on a Friday afternoon, it's not a good thing. Okay, it was Kotaku at the time, so that's how that was a bit of fame that I could have done without. All right, so we did this, and Friday everybody in the world calls me up and says, "What are you doing?" On Saturday, Europe hit. So people that I know from over there, John Linneman, Digital Foundry, they begin calling me. All right, I've survived, right? First 48 hours is the worst. Sunday was Japan. Monday was the Christian Times. I was just like, are you kidding me? and then Tuesday, I made Rolling Stone magazine. You'd have to be of my age to know that there was a song done by Captain Hook and the Medicine Show called "Cover of the Rolling Stone." Yeah, that was not a feel-good time for me. So we did this, and it was awful. It was just as awful as you could ask. I mean, our reputation was shot. So how do we recover? So you know the end of the story. The game comes out in 2023. Remember what I said, a 1-year project done in Unity? It was a 7-year project that cost about $7 million and was done in Unreal. All of the things that we had promised originally, none of them were true. That said, everybody that backed the game got their goods. Everybody got the physical goods. I should say the laptops are still coming. But 2024, the PlayStation and Xbox versions came out. Again, we won awards, won accolades. That was great. It did not really make up for the prior time. But how did we get there? How did we go from being the company that put everybody on hiatus to the company that won awards on the same game? And there are a couple of answers. First of all, this is actually a screenshot from our Kickstarter page. You notice that there are 108 campaigns and 5,861 comments. Most of the comments were of the form of, I hate you to death, from those people that read XKCD. They were along those lines. So we posted frequently. We posted updates, and we got yelled at. We did videos, we posted that, and we still got yelled at. We promised the game several times, and we got yelled at. But we delivered the game, and the majority of our fans pretty happy with it. The other part that went with it was how did we survive those years between the time. Now, System Shock isn't making any money, but we had to pay money for the license. So we had another division, and that division was our remaster division, which back in the day I was in charge of. In 2015, we launched Turok. It was actually, I think, December of 2014 that the first game came out on PC, and it was an immediate success. I will tell you, there are some good times in games too. Steve and I were sitting there, we were using Skype back then. We had moved from IRC, we had not gotten over to Discord or Slack yet, but I think we were using Skype, which it makes me feel dirty just to say. But we were chatting, and we're sitting there with the Steam screen up there, looking at the number of sales, hitting F5. Oh my God, it's selling. So that was good. But what this required us to do, and at the time there were about 20 people at Nightdive. I should say 20 odd people, because some of us were very odd. But there were about 20 odd people, and we were running 2 companies out of that. So there's a question of why people don't do that, because when you try to do that, usually the consequence, if you try to do 2 things at the same time, is you do at least one of them kind of poorly. We didn't. We were really, really lucky, really, really fortunate, and we've done some pretty amazing games. This article is on Star Wars Dark Forces, but compared to Dark Forces remastered to System Shock's remake. By the way, it is of Nightdive's DNA that the Killing Time video that I showed you before came out the same year as Star Wars Dark Forces remastered. So we're at a lovely place where Nightdive has developed a reputation, a brand that we can do pretty much whatever we feel, and people are willing to give it a shot. Okay. So that's the first part of it. Let's talk about you guys. There are 3 pillars to building your reputation: intentionality, consistency, and integrity. I'm going to talk about all 3 of them. Intentionality is easy. Everything should have a purpose. What are you trying to achieve? Consistency, doing it over and over and over again. And integrity. There are definitions in some of those. I will tell you, and it's what I alluded to at the very beginning, you create an online persona. We all do. There's who you are online, right? Some people are more aggressive online than they would be in person. Some people are more empathetic. Few of us. But the longer you maintain that persona, the closer you come to that persona, and the closer that persona comes to you. By the way, does anybody know the origin of persona? I mean, you've all probably used the word, right?
Carl Jung.
Carl Jung used it, but it's way older than Carl. Persona was was what they called it in Greek theater, when you put on the mask of one of the gods and you became that god. So a person that was portraying Zeus, that was taking on the persona of Zeus, would be considered sacred during that time. After they took the mask off, then they were just another acting bum. But I was an actor. But while you had that on, you became a different person, and I think that's really true. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so intentionality. So social media can either be a time sink or a tool. Pick your platform of choice. How do you approach that with intentionality? Who do you talk to? Who are the people that can help you? And people talk to their teachers at school and ask them for favors. Do you go up to the guy on the street and ask him the same thing? Do you ask your teacher for a recommendation, or the guy at the coffee shop? Why do you have different rules for the internet than you do for real life? If you spend more time talking to randos than you do talking to people that can help you, you're probably doing it wrong. Okay, so you decide that you have this list of people that you want to meet. Maybe they're people in the media, maybe they're people in publishing, maybe they're other game developers, artists, maybe they're programmers. Who do you want to talk to? How do you make that approach? Saying I'm an indie game developer and I have made a game, I hope you like it, is not compelling. However, your recent article about indie developers really struck a chord with me. Thank you for writing it. It's something that usually gets people's attention. You choose the people as being key in your field. Presumably they're creating content worth sharing. Share it. And if you think that people in the media don't appreciate recognition, if you think that they don't like it when you share their posts, then you're clearly not following me. Let me go back to the rando. So in 2018, two developers from NCSoft's Guild Wars got into a Twitter spat. The original article was about narrative design. I mean, come on, just pause for a second on that. It was about narrative design, right? How impassioned can you get about narrative design? Somebody said, I love your thoughts, but let me make a mild disagreement, a mild demur. Now, that turned into an ongoing spat involving another person from NCSoft that joined in also. They began ganging up on this one person who was responding to them. Keeps on going on and on. It turns out that the person that they were speaking to was not truly a rando, but was in fact an important member of the community. The upshot is both of those people from NCSoft were fired. I will tell you, I would have fired them. I would have fired them not for the spat. I would have fired them for being so stupid that after you've posted for the 200th time that you don't have the common sense to put the keyboard away. Again, intentionality. Just think about it. How much time are you spending with people that can do something for you, and how much time are you spending with people who don't care about you and who you don't care about? So once you've established intentionality, the next part is consistency, right? You've developed the strategy that you're going to identify people in your industry that can help you, whether they're media, whether they're senior people in the industry, whether they're people in your field, and you're going to begin a campaign to, what do the kids say? Slide into their DMs. I love that I can say that ironically. By the way, can you tell that when I do these presentations, I have a really good time? Because I'm going to come back to that at the end. But, all right, so you've now worked out the strategy. Do you do it once and then go, I sent you a compliment, where's my raise? Doesn't work that way. It's creating a pattern and doing it over and over again. And you want to apply both consistency of action and thoughtfulness to it. So let's say that you want to hit the media. Which media? You know, media come on at different times, right? New York media come on Eastern Standard Time, same time as here. But you're 5 hours behind the guys from the UK. Did you need that guy from the UK? Well, for me, yeah, Digital Foundry and Eurogamer are an important source. I mean, why would I neglect them? So I start really, really early in the morning. Really, really early in the morning. And moving out to Vegas, it's even earlier. So, but I start then, that's when I talk to Europe. After I get done talking to Europe, I have work to do. But then I have another alarm set for when I know the East Coast is coming online. I know when California is coming online, right? Japan, Asia, you might want to do in the evening. That's probably the best time. I mean, you guys can figure it out. But what you're doing is you're applying thoughtfulness to it. You're developing a strategy to it. And the strategy will not be perfect on day one. It will not be. It is iterative. It's the same thing as what you do in development. You don't fire off the code once and say, ship it. If only, right? Okay? You're going to be doing an iterative process. You're going to be seeing what works and what doesn't work. So when I talked about intentionality, I said to you that you should schedule time every day. Again, you want to possibly stagger those times. You want to find out what is most effective for you and what is most effective depending on who you want to talk to. Little dad joke, set your sights. Don't become so enamored with one platform, right? If you're looking at doing social media today, you want to be on both the platform that Elon Musk owns, which I refer to as my ex, but you also want to be where the skies are blue, right?
That's good.
Don't negate. Thank you. I do accept tips. Don't neglect the things that seem low. How many people are in engineering? Do not neglect your LinkedIn page, and I know you do.
I post stuff.
I know, because I see my name on there sometimes. Do not neglect LinkedIn. Don't neglect Facebook. There are others. Reddit, Resetera, the Steam forums, especially if you've already published a game. Do not neglect your Steam forums. So you want to be aware of this, but on the other hand, you don't want to spend all day posting. So you want to set yourself schedules. You want to say, I'm going to do this for this time, but you're going to commit to doing it, but there's also going to be a limit on it. Okay, so this is one of my favorite things, and this is what people do not do. There is an infinite amount of knowledge out there. There is an infinite amount of knowledge being posted every day. Don't tell me that there isn't stuff that you can bubble up to people. That there isn't stuff that people will begin to follow you because you know stuff. I read every one of these every day. I do PC Gamer, I do Game Industry, I do Game Informer, I do Retro Gamer, I do Kotaku, Destructoid, Polygon. I don't do them all the same amount. But if nothing else, I look to make sure my name's either in it or not in it, depending on what the nature of the article is. As I say, Jason Schreier calling up at 5 p.m. on a Friday is never a good thing. But you want to be more knowledgeable than anybody else. And not only that, you want to be more knowledgeable than your clients. There's nothing better than being in a negotiation and somebody insisting on something being true that isn't. And you're being able to say, I understand why you might think that, but here's an article that you might want to consider reading. Because it validates everything else that you're going to say. All right, so this is a funny part, integrity. All right, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. State of being whole and undivided. I think if you're whole and undivided today, you've got to be a pretty shallow person. Condition of being unified, unimpaired, or sound in construction. I fail on every one of those. Internal consistency or lack of corruption in electronic data. Well, thank God that they said electronic data, because I'd like to keep my corruption to myself. My definition of integrity, it's who you really are. And it always eventually comes out. So, among other things that have happened to me in my life, I was leaving the men's room at E3 when Dr. Disrespect and his camera crew was walking in. It's a moment that I'm okay to forget, but it did happen. So everybody knows about the Mr. Beast scandal? Terrible, terrible thing. He must be ruined. He just signed a new contract with Rumble, I believe, yesterday. His income for last year was $54 million. Clearly, death is not the wages of sin. But that's who these people are, and that's who they always were. It's interesting to me when I look at the Gamergate thing. One of the things, and we're well into Gamergate too. I would ask you a question, and I mean this sincerely. Who owns the games?
We don't.
Oh, you've been pirating my stuff? Oh, sorry. I thought that was a confession. I wasn't sure. But if not, Pirate Bay. Use a VPN. But who owns the games? Who owns our game? It's what, $340 billion last year? Who owns that? Yes, sir.
The developers?
I like that you asked that with a rising inflection.
I guess I'm...
The developers? That's not a bad answer. I'm not making fun of you, but you're right. You're right that we don't really know. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say the publishers.
Sure, EA. I'm going to guess that nobody in this room was at DICE last year. At the end of DICE, there's a presentation and awards ceremony. Greg Miller came out and he was the MC. And this is the joke that Greg told. There are two things that everybody in this audience is afraid to hear. One is people on the internet are angry at you. The second one is the Embracer group is here. I didn't make it up, I just retold it. What was really funny about that was the camera panned to the audience and it focused in on this guy who was just some guy. It wasn't Lars Wingefors. But he had his moment of fame. That really happened. They thought it was Lars and it wasn't. He wasn't wearing enough tweed. Lars always does that. But I think the question is, do gamers own the gaming ecosphere? You pay your $59.95, you pay your $69.95, you pay your $129.95. Geez, my audience gets pissed off at me when I sell stuff for $30. But what do you get for that? I mean, if you read the EULA, you get nothing. You get a license to play the game, maybe. You don't own the game. But I can understand why there's a perception, especially if you play one game all the time. One of the interesting things that came out of GameStop is that there are a significant number of people who consider themselves gamers who only buy 1 or 2 titles a year. Give me an example. The really core audience for Madden don't play any other games. That's the game that they play. Same thing with a lot of Call of Duty fans. So I can understand if you've paid money and you spend a significant number of hours every day playing a game that you can feel that you have the right to harass and hound the developers of that game, because that's always a winning strategy. When my car doesn't work right, I go to the factory and I yell at the guys on the assembly line. Actually, they don't let me into the factory anymore, so I wait for those guys to leave and then I follow them home. It's the old-fashioned way of doxing. There's nothing that I am saying that doesn't happen. And it happens with weird stuff. There are people that are angry at me personally, because they couldn't figure out how to open a door in System Shock. Fortunately, I'm empathetic and sensitive, and I always give good advice. Get good. They tell me that it's spelled G-I-T-G-U-U-D, that's the way to say it, so that's what I do. But this is reality. I mean, there's a reality here that both you have terrible people on the web and you have terrible audience for them. I mean, you think that a lot of the people, you think Mr. Beast lost audience? You think Dr. Despicable, I'm sorry, Dr. Disrespect lost audience from his shenanigans? No. That's the way the world is. The thing is that when I wake up in the morning, I feel pretty good about myself. Of course, if I had $54 million, I would feel better. But I'm okay. So I'm going to talk about me. I have a personal brand. my personal brand, I just think I stole it from you. Consistent positivism. Just throw out a couple of things here. I answer fans, even if they're not necessarily, this is a fan thing that was unlimited run games, and I said yes. Yes, everything will come there, and same thing with Turok, that this is one of the questions that will get asked over and over again. Kotaku. When was the last time you heard anybody in the industry say something nice about Kotaku? When PO'd came out, Zach Wiesen from Kotaku, somebody violated, they broke embargo. I mean, not by a lot, but by, 4 hours, whatever. They did it their time zone instead of, whatever. At that point, once embargo had been broken on that, and people in the media were saying, "Hey, this one," I was like, "Go ahead, man. Do what you feel. Do what you need." Zach Wiesen said, "No, we don't break embargo." Didn't hurt me. I gave him a shout out on that. Two other things here. Dave Oshry. Everybody know who Dave Oshry is? Everybody know about New Blood? You know what Dave did for the last show season for the IGN Live? Rented billboards in Los Angeles and New York City. You know the big Times Square billboard, the electronic one? He rented that one. He did a homage to the people that we've lost in the industry. Studios that have closed. Tango, people who've lost their jobs. And all it said was, we remember you, we miss you, we're New Blood, we hate money. I could not think of a proper way to celebrate Dave's doing that. I told him it was one of the best things that I've ever seen anybody in the industry do. So when I went out to LA for IGN Live out there, and Dave had the bulletin boards under it, I found myself a little seat underneath the bulletin board, and I smoked a pre-roll. So on that, one of the other pictures there is of me doing a stand-up comedy routine at a dispensary in Las Vegas. I am nothing if not accessible. There was no IGDA meeting that night, so there I was. But that's my brand, and I don't punch down. I'm not mean. I don't see any reason for that. I try to lift people up, and I try to empower people. When I moved from Ann Arbor to Las Vegas, I knew no one in Las Vegas. I had no relatives in Las Vegas. I also don't drink, don't smoke, don't gamble. So Las Vegas was natural for me. But what I did have out there was the IGDA. I spoke to the mothership. I think Renee was IGDA president at the time. Spoke to the mothership and I said, "Hey, I'm leaving Ann Arbor. I'm moving out to Las Vegas. Is there an IGDA there?" So that's great, because the IGDA out in Las Vegas had stopped. We need somebody to bring it back to life, to raise this moldering corpse. So I said, "Sure." And I get out there and I reach out to the people. There's a bunch of kids out there. You're all kids. Except you.
Me?
Yeah. No. You got gray hair. I can deal with that. So, bunch of kids out there, and one of the kids, we're sitting at a table, and I was pontificating, as it were. What I had just said was that my original background is in sales. My original background is in theater, but I did sales for many years. And you don't sell things by making statements. You think you do, but you don't sell things by making statements. You sell things by asking questions. Wouldn't you agree? Anything can be made into a question, don't you think? So I had said that, and when I look up, one of the young men across the table has got out one of those moleskin books, and he's writing down. I mean, and I don't know what he's writing down, so I said, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing down what you just said. Isn't that okay? And I said, yeah, it's fine. It's just that I've got 2 kids and I'm not used to anyone listening to me. Tell that to your dad. He's going to find that a lot funnier than you did. But that's the way it was. I mean, and he took my advice to heart, and you know, over the years we founded a pretty robust IGDA out there. We had about 400 members at our peak. We had almost the entire computer science department of the University of Las Vegas, UNLV. Then came COVID, but that young man, he and I formed a friendship, which ended a couple of months ago when we hired him. He's now one of the managers at Nightdive Studios. So and still attending the IGDA and still doing pretty well. But that's been my message. You know, there's no reason that I would not do everything in my power to lift you up, because I may need you someday. Everybody's seen The Godfather? One day I may come to you. I may ask for a favor. But that's a big part of what I do. So I told you I'd come back to this. As I said, I enjoy doing these. These are a lot of fun. I'm going to give you some advice. First of all, you're already following a part of it. You're here at the IGDA. Best thing I can tell you if you're looking to get started in the business, do game jams, do portfolios. Then another thing that people don't think about, if you have failed at something, if you've done a project, if you launched a game, whatever you've done and it went sideways, oh my God, people want to hear about that. That's more important than I sold 1 million copies, because the 1 million copies isn't as accessible. But screwing up, everybody can do that. So if you can tell me how I can avoid making the same mistakes that you did, that's gold to me, right? Especially if we're on the same level, especially if we're fledgling developers just starting out. So I really encourage people to do that. As I say, it takes a lot, but the rewards are 100 times what you put in. And I love this quote. You really have to see Danny Trejo say it, but everything good that's ever happened to me came out of helping others. You know how Danny Trejo's career started? No?
He was an ex-con, and he had to visit a movie studio, and somebody recognized him. Hey, didn't you used to box in prison? And they were filming some prison boxing, and suddenly he got this job, teaching and then acting. The guy that said to him, hey, could you come and be the instructor, which would then later turn out to be the opponent in the boxing match, and got him his first skill time. He knew Danny Trejo through a social group that they had belonged to, Narcotics Anonymous. Wait a minute. The gateway to Hollywood, stardom, came through NA. Did anybody used to play Dance Dance Revolution? Because I really got addicted to that. And I finally had to join a 12-step program. I'll wrap up on this one. And that's where you find me. I expect to get a whole bunch of LinkedIn requests, and I'll be very disappointed if I don't. If I don't, it shows that you didn't listen to anything I said, and I have to start all over again.
Larry, thank you so much.
I also wanted to tell you that the part of my personal brand is the T-shirts. When I turned around and I showed you the doom and the quick, yeah, that was not unintentional. I do a series of deep dive podcasts, and did one recently with Evan Lottie, global, used to be editor-in-chief, he's now moved up to something even fancier for PC Gamer. and we were talking about the state of gaming journalism and how sites are going under and people are being laid off. And the T-shirt that I wore for that said, "Won't someone think of the shareholders?" Questions? Comments?
Questions?
Yeah.
What's the name of the podcast?
Deep Dive from Nightdive. Yep. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Is there something for younger students that either want to build their own personal brand or make their own indie studios? Is there some sort of mistake that you see people make when they try to do it that, like, when people try?
Yeah. And it's actually covered under consistency. It's easy to create a persona and post it once on your social media platform of choice. It's hard to do it every day and post something relevant that will build your brand, but that's how you do it. Think about who you follow and who you read, right? You probably don't follow somebody that only posts once every 2 weeks. And even if you do follow them, you're going to fall off pretty quickly. But if that same person posts an article that's relevant, I don't know what area you're looking at going into. What type of game are you looking at?
I think sort of like Hollow Knight, but I'm still trying to figure it out.
All good on there. All good on there. First of all, what you've just said, well, how do you go about figuring it out? Maybe you want to take advantage of the wisdom of the community. Maybe you want to start a post that says, "Indie looking for direction." Seriously. And every day you post what efforts you have done. Take 15 minutes and do that and build it out. Find out who is influential in the area that you want to look at. Look up Hollow Knight, look at the reviews. Who are the top reviewers on there? That's who you want to talk to. By the way, and this is gold, whatever game you're making, everybody wants to have journalists cover your game. You know what the worst thing to read is? I don't usually like this kind of genre, but let me review this game. Oh, don't do me any favors. I'm a bitter man at heart. You know this to be true. I hold grudges. I have lists. Ethan Gatch of Kotaku did a review of one of my games and said the worst words. I didn't actually play it.
What? Huh?
Well, there are a lot of things I haven't done. You want to hear my thoughts about those? That really pissed me off. Really did. But the thing is about that, I wouldn't have picked him as a journalist. I would have picked people that like the kind of games. By the way, I mentioned the podcast. So I guess I'm an influencer now? Am I supposed to say something racist? I understand that's how it rolls, man. But that's my advice on that. Who else has got something that you want to handle? Yes, sir.
I don't know. I just want to say I like you a lot. You seem like a cool person. I admire you.
Appearances can be deceiving. Yes, sir.
Yes. So what would you recommend someone who's trying to revive or just start their own chapter or community? Speaking as someone who went to Las Vegas to restart the IGDA over there.
First thing is find out who would benefit from it. So I'll give you a whole bunch. I mean, first of all, find out if there's an omnibus organization that you can be under, right? You got the Black Student Engineers.
Yep.
Is it? Start off there and begin to ask the question, who's serving black game developers? You know Shadow Man? Know the game Shadow Man? No, you don't. Don't try to bluff me, man. I'm gonna be looking up your Steam account in a minute. No, the reason I bring up Shadow Man is because I'm the publisher of it. Shadow Man was based off of a comic book, Shadow Man. It's one of the first video games that had a black protagonist. Which is how I ended up being one of the 2 people in an article about black game developers. They didn't make fun of the fact that I'm melanin deprived, but there we go. Yes, sir.
So you're when you guys fundraised for System Doc, that was like 2016, you said, right? That was like prime time for Kickstarter.
Yes, sir.
Where do you think the fundraising era is at now in Kickstarter and like grassroots interest in those types of projects?
I think it's hard. I think that we're coming back to an age again where people that are looking for funding, particularly to complete the game, are looking at 2 sources, publishers and VC, some form of VC. What does VC want from you? Why did David leave? These guys just got picked up by Anderson Horowitz. And what does a VC want from you?
20%.
Oh, no. They want far more than that. They want the value of your game. They want the value of your studio to go up 10x in 2 years. So if they give you $200,000 to operate for 2 years, which is really like a one-man studio, they expect you to generate $2 million back to them. And if you don't, they cut you loose. Publishers, on the other hand, depending on the publishing deal, you can find publishers. If you have a good game, if you have good mechanics, it doesn't crash, it's an interesting plot, interesting twist, you can find a publisher. And that publisher will help you with publishing. And that publisher may or may not pay you. Marketing costs. It's basically a blank check. It's basically a blank check that you've signed your name on the bottom to, and they're going to fill in the amount. First publishing deal I ever did. The first publishing deal I ever did went really, really well. It was Take-Two. First game I ever sold was to Take-Two. It was The Corporate Machine, which is still on Steam, by the way. And we got paid on that. It was great. They took us out. I had a friend working there, a VP, took us out to Spark Steakhouse in New York. While we're at the table, I feel a hand on my leg, which doesn't happen to me as often as you might think. In the hand was a check for $75,000. It was the final payment. I thought that was like the best thing that ever happened. I'm having this wonderful steak dinner, and there's the money. like Friday payday. So that was kind of cool. The next game that I sold was Galactic Civilizations. We had a list of 10 publishers that we thought would be prospective publishers. I went down the list of all of them. We ended up going with the 11th. Why, you may ask, weren't they on the list the first time? The name of the company that we ended up publishing it was Strategy First. Although at Stardock at that time, we began to refer to them as Tragedy First. They literally went into bankruptcy holding our money. But there's a story about what I negotiated out of that gave rise to Impulse. That's how we got all those games that Impulse launched with.
That's how we got all this. That's how we got the first batch. Damn.
First batch. So it turns out that the modern saying is incorrect. You can get blood from a stone. You just have to squeeze really hard. So that worked out. But by and large, publishers, whether publishers actually pay you what you were expecting is iffy at best. So that's a kind of crappy answer. The other answer that I can give to you is the way that a lot of companies have done business. Make that first game. Do whatever you have to, but make that first game. And make that first game as good as you possibly can. And sell that game. market it. Do it yourself. Spend your life doing that. You think I'm kidding about the hours? What happened when I went on vacation? What happened when I went on vacation, Sam? How many times were we talking that night on Slack?
A lot.
So, I have come to grips with my own mortality. I have. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I got games to ship. I got shit to do. Next question.
Who do I have to bribe and how much to get a remake or remaster of the original Deus Ex or Ultima Ascension?
Talk to you afterwards.
What about No One Lives Forever?
So if you don't know it, No One Lives Forever is the white whale of Nightdive. And we are still actively pursuing that. But that game, that companies that are involved in who has the ownership of that game, Warner Brothers, Activision, Fox, 20th Century. So when I explain that, this is in an article that that back in those days, documents were not scanned electronically, and when a game was over, when it was done, that stuff got put into a box. Has anybody seen the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark? Do you know the end of it when they put the box in a room full of other boxes? Next to the Ark of the Covenant is the No One Lives Forever contract that I need. So, but we're still working on it. One of the advantages about being a Tara, we've now got a little bit more clout. We have a little bit more resources. Next question. Anything? Going once. No, you get two turns. Sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned a lot about just like social media presence, building your own like sort of personal brand. Do you consider it mandatory to have a social media presence?
No, not at all. It's not mandatory. It depends. Do you like being poor?
Personally, no.
I'm just saying, a lot of people complain about Hamburger Helper, but you don't really need to add hamburger to it. Just have the box. That's from the National Lampoon movie, but yeah, the answer is, do you want to be successful? How do you expect to reach people? You know how many games are published on Steam every day? How are you going to get yours to bubble up if you don't tell people about it? Yes?
I just wanted to share this story of, it's kind of related to what you're talking about. Potions, A Curious Tale. I covered that for Polygon because the developer was talking about how her game got buried on the Steam store. And her game wouldn't have gotten covered by me or anybody if she hadn't, done that. So the social media presence can oftentimes be your only voice speaking for you because no one else is going to speak up for you.
So just in case we're not aware of it, Juno is a published author. Polygon, Kotaku, what am I missing? Shack News?
Lots of stuff, I don't know.
So been around for quite a while. And the person that did that game was the former president of the IGDA, Renee Gibbons.
Yeah.
And yes, I really do know everybody. Other things that you can do, I'll just throw one out there because it's a new thing that I'm starting to do. I've signed up to do my first mentorship for the IGDA Foundation, and I'm doing it for the BPOC community. Just basically sales advice and how to get your game out in front of people. It's essentially this, doing 2 half-hour breakout sessions. You can sign up for things like that. Yeah. There are opportunities out there, and there are people like me, some better than me, who are out there looking to help you. Yep. Anything else?
Any final questions? Final question.
question over there.
Oh, yes.
I had a little question about personas and building your reputation.
Uh-huh.
I do mostly solo indie stuff, and I don't really post online under my name. Is it important that you use your real name to build a reputation, or does
Not
it
at all.
only matter so long as you do?
If you're a one-person studio, if that is who you are, then post under the studio, because that's the identity that's important. If, however, you go to work for mega corporation, don't post under mega corporation only. You want to have your own identity.
Yeah. So long as it's tied to me and not like a third party.
That's right.
And I follow your other steps of consistency. Everything.
And let me know how it goes. And by the way, tag me.
All right. Larry, thank you so much. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you. Great crowd, great talks. We have some time remaining, okay? Usually around 10:15 or so, we walk down the street to Frida Batito's, get some Cuban burgers. You can join us for that if you'd like, or if you're headed home, please drive safe. Otherwise, for the next 20 minutes or so, meet the people around you, play the games that are still running, right? Trade some LinkedIn connections. And if anyone has been a speaker today and you want to talk with them more, ask some more questions, please feel free to do so, okay? Thank you all so much for coming. Can we get a hand for Corbin, who's run our technology today? We will see you next time, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
If you've joined us virtually, we look forward to seeing you next time. We will be back in January. We are not going to be back in December as the Student Showcase takes over our December month. Thank you so much.